Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, part 2 of our season preview series, answering the question, who could break out for the Phoenix Suns? And unfortunately, who do we have to worry about maybe breaking down for the Suns? Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Tuesday. We're back daily. It's been a while since we had a show on a Tuesday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button wherever you're finding us to become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app, the best place to buy a ticket. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Joining me, as always, the executive producer of The Drive on Fox Sports 910 from the a little less warm West Valley today. How are we feeling on this Tuesday, Ben Garcia?
Our West Valians, is that what we would call us? We're doing great. Did you know that we are 1 day away from being 2 weeks away from Suns training camp? October 1st, if I'm not mistaken, it starts.
Yeah, today as we're recording this, we're 2 days from media day. So then the next day is camp and we're off to the races.
We are almost there. Cannot wait. Yeah, no, we honestly did make it. Now at this point, we're just churning through the days, churning through the episodes before we're firing out hot takes about why the Suns are going to win the championship and I don't know, why the Lakers are going to implode. Or at least
that was kind of yesterday, right? We're going a little more granular today. So we're going to ask questions every day and try to answer them. That's how we're going to preview the season. And then by the time we get to 2 weeks from now, when Ben just mentioned we will be covering real stuff, we'll just be able to dedicate ourselves fully to that. And the preview stuff will be all out of the way. Maybe we'll do predictions right before the season actually gets started. But today's question is, who could break out for the Suns this season? And we'll save a little time at the end for who might break down and, hopefully just grit our teeth, cover our eyes, and talk through those options. Ben, who's going to break out for the Suns this year?
Is it cheating if I say Bradley Beal? Is it cheating if I say Bradley Beal is going to break out for the Suns this year?
It's not cheating.
All injuries aside, if the guy stays healthy, which is a huge if, he adds something that the Suns really needed last year, which is an ability to get to the rim at will. One thing that Bradley Beal, I think, really showed predominantly last year was he still has it's why when people say Bradley Beal's washed, it's just not true, because the first thing that grows when you are quote unquote washed is your athleticism. Bradley Beal still has one of the quickest first steps in the NBA. He still blows by guys, and it's always been kind of his calling card. And the Suns don't really have a guy who can get to the rim. I know Kevin Durant can, but it's not really his thing. He mentioned earlier this year in an article with Dwayne Rankin that he kind of stays away from the crash test dummies. He's trying to preserve his career. So that's not really his thing. He can do it if he needs to. But Bradley Beal makes a lot of it getting to the rim. And they don't really have a guy that can do that. And that's kind of like the Suns' off-speed pitch, if you will. And at times when Tyus Jones off the floor and they don't have the point guard, like the traditional point guard that I don't really care about running with the second unit, a lot of the offense that's going to be made is off of Bradley Beal, because he's probably going to be running a lot more at that second unit, although we both agree he'll probably be starting as well. I just see that being a key contributor for this team. And I also just believe he's a better three-point shooter than people give him credit for. If he stays healthy, there's no reason why he can't be significantly better for this team this year than he was last year. And one thing as well, he showed that he's not a great defender, but he's a willing defender, which was a real question of him when he was with the Wizards. Will the guy defend it all? He's kind of like Devin Booker. I still think Devin Booker is a very underrated defender in the NBA. He's not as good of a defender as Devin Booker, but he definitely showed at times he can stay in front of guys. He's not a weak link, and he's willing. So Bradley Beal, I think, is my guy who's going to break out this year. That I think is kind of cheating, but I'm going to say it anyways.
No, I don't think it's cheating, because I think the way you're putting it is breakout as what Suns Bradley Beal is going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we didn't really get that vision. So I think this year, being the actual part 3 of a big 3 and competing the way he needs to for a championship caliber team, that is a type of breakout that we really haven't seen since he was a kid and John Wall was playing with them. So I think that that's so totally valid. And if yours is cheating, mine's definitely cheating. I'm going with Devin Booker
Oh,
because
wow.
he doesn't need to break out. It's a little bit bending the rules. Of course, he's fully established. He's an all NBA, all star caliber player. He's put up 40 in finals games. But my case for Devin Booker being that guy, being the guy that breaks out to an even higher level and catapults this team to an even higher ceiling, is him getting even anywhere in the vicinity of how he looked in the 2023 playoffs. If anyone needs reminding, it was only like 18 months ago. This guy put up 34, 7, and 5 on almost 70% true shooting with almost 2.5 stock steals and blocks per game over a full playoffs in 2023. This season doesn't have to be the full-time point guard anymore for this team, or try to be the square peg in a round hole that they forced him into, where he was overthinking and making blatant mental mistakes late in games, early in games, all the time throughout all these games. And I would hope, like you're saying with Beal, better defensive personnel and a more veteran roster, he also can be put into a position to succeed on defense more than he was. Because the reality with everybody on this roster is the defense needs to improve. Every single person on this entire roster you could point a finger at and say they need to take a step forward from where they were on the defensive end. Individually, as a team, communication, making plays, all of it. And Book is no exception to that. He took a step back last year. So you would hope the roster helps him do that. Not having so much responsibility as a creator on the offensive end full time, that he can get back to, again, it's more like, can he do for 82 games what we already saw him do for like 15 games in the playoffs? But if he can do that, I mean, we're talking about MVP votes for this guy.
Do you think he's capable of doing that? Do you think he's capable of doing that over an 82 game sample size?
Well, not
like
fully, right? Because like the
can he
minutes
hold
per
up
game are going to
as
be
well?
lower.
Yeah.
The production, holding up physically, all that stuff, all valid. I think he can get close. I think that he can be a legitimate two-way difference maker, possession in, possession out, scoring at a high level efficiently while chipping in as a playmaker and a rebounder and a, turnover creator and all those sorts of things. I do. I think that the best two guards in the league basically do that. And I think he's one of them. So I see no reason why, if he is healthy and the roster makes sense, that he should be able to.
Yeah, for me, it's hard for me to think Devin Booker or even Kevin Durant can break out. Devin Booker, I think I know what I get with him. I don't think there's much more to Devin Booker's game aside from being a little bit better of a three-point shooter, because he's always just a little bit worse of a three-point shooter than you actually, when you look at the statistics and see that he is.
Mm-hmm.
And then defensively, I do think he can take just one more notch up in his defensive game. He's never going to be Klay Thompson in his prime. He's never going to be Kevin Durant in his prime defensively. But both those guys, I don't know if there's any room for Kevin Durant or Devin Booker to take another leap up that would really change this team. So the reason why I go to Bradley Beal is because he seems like the guy last year that, he was still good. Like you had mentioned, I think you said he has 67% true shooting percentage last year. He was still good when he was on the floor, but it was still like a square peg in a round hole. He didn't do things differently enough from the big three to where it really changes anything. So for me, at that point, you have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, where you kind of mentioned the thing, big three. Last year, it was not a big three. I think that Bradley Beal can be the guy that breaks out to actually make this a formed big three, to be what it was supposed to be before the trade. So, I mean, Devin Booker, I don't think you're wrong. And I do think there's one more level to his game, but I don't think there's enough of a gap to change anything else. Like, can he perform better in the playoffs? Sure. But I'm not really thinking of it in that stature right now. I'm just thinking, what player can add the highest leap to this team from where they were last year? And that's why I go Bradley Beal.
Yeah. It's fair. And your point originally with Beal, too, I just want to highlight because you mentioned the getting to the rim. I think both Booker and Beal need to be part of that solution. The Suns
Yeah.
were 25th in the NBA last year in the number of the percentage of those shots that came at the rim. They were uh, ahead of, surprisingly, Boston. But look, the Suns are never going to compete with the Celtics in the 3-point department, so they can't be
Yeah.
there.
Boston
It's
shot a
funny,
lot of
though.
threes.
Exactly, and they made a lot of threes. The funny thing though there is like the 5 teams behind the Suns in that category include Boston, Sacramento, Miami, Dallas, and Golden State. Those are all good teams. So it's really just one or the other. Are you going to become a really high volume 3-point team, or are you going to become a higher volume rim team? You can't do neither. And that's the problem the Suns have run into. So I think Book and Beal can definitely elevate the team in terms of the shot diet department to just round out their team a little bit and not rely on those difficult mid-range shots. And I think that's going to be part of this team taking a step forward on the offensive end. Let's get to more breakout players. I have 2, Ben, that are both in the front court that are a little more low down the pecking order, but they are players that I think both could be even better than they were last season. Then we'll talk about some breakdown potential as well. Coming up next. First, today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app, the best place to buy any ticket. I've told you before that I use Gametime constantly. Bought D-backs Dodgers tickets a while back. I have bought, concert tickets for sure. They also have comedy, theater, and more. Gametime also has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of events, especially in a big city like Phoenix. It gives you the best events at the top. When you click into those events, it gives you the best tickets at the top of that event page, making it as easy and straightforward as possible. That's Gametime's mission. They have all-in-one pricing, views from your seat, and more right in the app, right from the beginning. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All righty, keeping the show rolling here on this Tuesday. Don't forget to check out Locked On NBA, folks, for season preview coverage all month long of the whole league. We're doing the Suns here. They're doing everything else. I'll start us off with our next breakout player, Ben, as we answer the question, who could break out to make the Suns even better and who might start to break down that we have to have a little bit of worry about. But on the positive here for just a few more minutes, Jusuf Nurkic. Jusuf Nurkic. And it's the conversation we've had, and we'll have it again, I'm sure. We're going to do at least one episode here in our season preview centered on Mike Budenholzer. But it's what can the butt effect be on Nurk? And I'm not fully sold on it, but I have an interesting number for you, okay? Past 4 years, if you add up all the 3-point attempts that Jusuf Nurkic has taken, he's very hot and cold. He will take a bunch and then ignore that shot completely. It fluctuates. But 4 years now, almost 300 attempts, 31%. Pretty decent starting point. Better than maybe we would give it credit for. Even if you're just talking about Jusuf Nurkic spacing out to the corner on certain possessions, hitting a trail 3 in transition, it's just about adding. Then the Suns were a very good team when Nurkic was on the floor last year statistically. It's a great starting point. How much better can you get? And I think the answer might have a lot more room to take it up a level than we're giving it credit for, even though it seems ridiculous with how many bad misses we saw him have from 3 last year that he could actually do it.
Jusuf Nurkic, you had mentioned, because when you had said him, that's not a breakout candidate that I thought you were going to go with. I mean, I'll get to mine in just a second. I do think Jusuf Nurkic has gotten a little overblown. We'll get to the breakdown in just a little bit. But you had said Jusuf Nurkic, 31%, correct? So
yep,
Brook
over
Lopez.
4 years.
Okay. I don't have the exact statistics for over 4 years, but this idea that somehow, some way, Mike Budenholzer is going to switch Jusuf Nurkic from being a kind of a back to the basket center, I do agree with you that way underrated for the Phoenix Suns last year, an impeccable passer, got way too much hate last year. But I don't know if I'm going to buy into the notion that Jusuf Nurkic is just somehow going to be a good volume three-point shooter. Maybe not even volume. Maybe just a consistent three-point shooter. However, I do think that's what the Suns are going for. Because you do see the slimmer Jusuf Nurkic. If they want Jusuf Nurkic to play back to the basket, Jusuf Nurkic from last year, they're not telling the guy to slim down. I'm very skeptical on Jusuf Nurkic. And if he turns into that guy, awesome. The player that I also think is going to break out this year, just kind of segueing over to this guy, I think is Ryan Dunn. I cannot quit Ryan Dunn. I don't know what it is. I can't quit the guy. You put a 6'10", massively athletic, jumps out of the gym, cutting to the basket guy, and now I see he's working out with Kevin Durant. I know I've said it till I'm blue in the face. If this guy can shoot 33, 34% from three, I'm not asking for anything crazy. He's going to open up the offense. And not only that, if he could just not be a liability shooting threes, or just not be a liability shooting the ball at all. Also, you added the quality of getting to the basket. That's kind of what Ryan Dunn did as well at Virginia. Cutting the basket, backdoor, alley-oops. He's just an athlete, and that is how he got a lot of his points over at Virginia. So that's a guy I just can't quit. I just have belief in the Phoenix Suns who have, I mean, James Jones is driving me insane with things that he's done in the past, but I don't really blame him for a lot of it. But like, he did draft Cam Johnson, and everyone called that a reach. Last year, Toumani Camara, team could have really used Toumani Camara. I'm just putting stock in the fact that the Phoenix Suns haven't been a horribly drafting team like most NBA teams are, because the NBA draft is such a crapshoot. I'm going with Ryan Dunn. I'm just riding that until the cows come home with Ryan Dunn. And not only that, outside of Bradley Beal, he is the one player that I think can take this team from a Western Conference Finals team all the way to a dominant championship contender, given the fact that he's so good defensively. And I do have belief that he'll figure out something on the offensive end.
Yeah, let me be clear. If it's Nurkic, if I'm even making my best case scenario case for him, it is pretty incremental, right? He already played a ton of minutes last year. He already had kind of a bounce back season from his Portland days. You know, I'm thinking of what can a better roster and a new coach, can he get 10% better, 5% better? With Dunn, not only do we not have any baseline for him to improve upon, so it's all like found money for the Suns if he does anything, really, anything positive, but they need his skill set so badly that the payoff would just be huge, right? So that's definitely a much higher, like a lottery hit than
I mean,
Nurkic.
I can't quit him, man. I can't quit the 6'8", 6'10", 7-foot wingspan, defensive menace. He is everything that the Phoenix Suns need so desperately. And if he hits, if he's 70% of what we think he can be, that is going to open up so much for the Phoenix Suns offense and defensively.
He made 69% of his shots at the rim last year. That is better than Drew Eubanks. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, I was just making sure, seeing if anyone was paying attention. But look, again, it's college to the pros. I'm not trying to make it 1-to-1. That is 13 percentage points better than what Josh Okogie did for this team. That is 3% better than what Nasir Little did for this team. That is 9 percentage points higher than Jusuf Nurkic shot at the rim last year. Now we know that's maybe not his strong suit. He misses a lot of those bunnies around the basket, but you can point to the 3-point percentage and the free throw percentage for Dunn and be very negative. I just think that there are some other indicators of his athleticism that paint him as maybe a little bit more polished than we give him credit for, as just this raw nothing on offense. Like Matisse Thybulle when he came in was a nothing on offense. And he
Still
still
is.
kind of is. He just has,
Still
he
is.
at least has a little bit of a 3-point shot that he's been able to develop, but he can't do much else. Dunn has some of the other stuff. He actually just doesn't have the shot. So we'll have to see. I have one more for you in terms of role players. You smiled when I teased this segment on the front court coming in, and so I think you know where I'm going here. It's Bol Bol.
I don't know. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Say it again. I talked over you.
It's Bol Bol.
Oh no.
Let me just get you on the record here. You think it's more likely that a rookie who can't shoot right now impacts the team at a higher level than Bol Bol?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do think that.
Can you make a case against
you,
Bol Bol that is more specific than just like rolling your
yeah,
eyes
sure. No, sure. Yeah, right away. 2 teams had Bol Bol, and both teams said we're good. At some point.
And the Suns didn't. They brought him back. Why'd they do that?
Because no one else, they had no other options. So you might as well bring
That's
back
not
the guy
true.
that
They let a bunch of guys go.
Well, wait a second.
They let Eric Gordon go. They let,
Eric Gordon was never, Eric
back.
Gordon, the Suns did not let Eric Gordon go. Eric Gordon was never re-signing here again.
Okay.
He was
you get my point.
Who?
Like
no, I don't get your point. No.
They couldn't have signed a single other player. They were going to be boycotted by the NBA. They couldn't fill out their roster.
Yes, sure. They could have filled out their roster with some 10th, 11 guy that is probably
which is the same thing the Nuggets or Magic would have been doing if they brought him back, right? He's a bench player. Nobody's denying that. I'm never sitting here trying to make the case the guy's going to be an all-star here, but the Suns were a good team when he was on the court after the All-Star break last year, legitimately positive. He played almost every night, and he played about 15 minutes a game. What if he does that in 20 minutes a game, continues to be a positive while he's out on the court, and he's making a minimum contract? Those are the types of things. I mean, we all just got our panties in a bunch about Gershon Yabusele going to freaking Philadelphia like it was the next, super team for the Philadelphia 76ers. If Yabusele does what Bol did after the All-Star break in Phoenix last year at any point this season, people are going to be writing glowing profiles of the guy because the Sixers nailed this bench signing to take their team to the next level on a minimum. That's what you got to do when you're in the type of dire straits that the Suns are in from a cap standpoint. And I think he could do it. Bud has a track record with so many big men that you don't even remember the name of, who he got pretty nice seasons out of. I think Bol could do it.
I'm not going to sit here and trash Bol Bol again. I like Bol Bol. I'm so out on Bol Bol being a key playoff rotational piece for this team. I like the guy. I mean, listen, he's got a nice stroke. He's still really thin. He's going to get beaten up around the glass. Also, the Yabusele thing is kind of a bad comp because I would much rather have Yabusele than Bol Bol because Yabusele is a 6'8", 275 wing, and Bol Bol is 7'3", but weighs less than me, and I feel like that's a problem. And also, I mean, it's been well documented. You know this as well. Bol Bol's not a head case, but he's not exactly the hardest worker from everything that I've seen and read. Not exactly the hardest worker. So let me just jump on this really quickly. If Bol Bol does have a breakout season, yes, he could take this team to new heights. I do find it very unlikely. And yes, I do think Ryan Dunn, who fits more of what the Suns need, and the Suns really just desperately need an athletic wing that can defend, and they can throw someone at Luka Doncic or whoever it is, Kawhi Leonard, you name it. I do think that's more likely than Bol Bol. I don't like crapping on Bol Bol because everyone loves the guy. I love the guy, but I just feel like he's more of
let me just say, if you don't want to crap on him, when I make the case for him to be a breakout player, maybe your reaction shouldn't be. Because then it seems negative. I didn't make you do that. You did that. So let's bet on it here.
All right, you're right. You got me. That was on me.
Let's bet on it here. More minutes this season. And by the way, people have heard me speak glowingly of Ryan Dunn myself. So I don't need to. I think he's huge. He could be. Do you think Dunn plays more minutes total over the course of the season than Bol?
Yes.
Okay.
If I
What
believe,
are we betting? Dinner?
where would you like to eat?
Well, I mean, I would hope you think you're going to win the bet. So it's more about where you would want to eat. That's why I'm giving you the.
I don't know. Yeah, sure. I'll buy
All
you
right,
dinner. I'm
Okay.
not taking you to Steak 48 though.
No. I'm not taking you there either. So we don't have to
Oh,
worry
wait a
about
second.
that. We're talking
I thought we were all in on Bol Bol.
we're talking like a sandwich somewhere, like a burger. We're not doing
They don't
anything
have to
crazy
know
here.
that. We could have just told
Okay.
everyone it was Steak 48 and we were going to figure it out from there.
Yeah, right across
we
Ocean
could've-
44, right across from the Suns practice facility. That's where we'll make it happen. All right. Let's talk about breakdown candidates.
I look like such a jerk.
No, you're good. A few people here who we might have to worry a little bit about, or maybe nobody. We'll get to it next. First, today's show is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. You've heard us talk a ton about FanDuel here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. We have something a little different for you going on now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. The Cardinals are 3-point home dogs against the Detroit Lions. I will just say one of those teams won on Sunday. One of them didn't. So maybe 3's a little disrespectful. I don't know. Maybe it should be a pick 'em. Either way, you put the $5 down, you get the Sunday ticket. The cherry on top is if you win the bet. Visit FanDuel.com to try it out. Download America's #1 sportsbook today. Let's close out the show here, Ben. Breakdowns. Let me just get this out of the way on this topic, okay? I'm not including injuries because, one, that's just a stupid kind of like, in my opinion, it's very hard to guess. And it's very hard, and it's kind of disrespectful to assume. My stance. So where I went with this is guys that I can track some specific skill set decline that might be coming. And yeah, of course it's due to age. I'm not going to predict, I'm not going to sit here and say Ryan Dunn will break down. That would be dumb. But I have 2 guys, but I'll let you start us off. Where are you looking in terms of breakdowns?
Well, I didn't know we weren't allowed to go after injuries, but the guy
We are. Just my stance.
You didn't. I understand. You're the basketball savant, and I'm just the fanboy cosplaying as an analyst at this point. But I think it's Jusuf Nurkic. It's why I was so surprised that you had said he was a breakout candidate. I think Jusuf Nurkic is so obviously the guy that can decline because he was so good last year for the Suns. Passing, he was healthy, but this is a guy, like, it's not just injuries. Over the past however many seasons, outside of a 79 and 72 back-to-back with the Portland Trail Blazers, 8 games played, 37 games played, 56 games played, 52, and then out of nowhere, the anomaly is him playing 76 games.
Yeah.
I just worry that we're due for a market correction with Jusuf Nurkic. I was a Jusuf Nurkic fanboy last year. I was the one on social media fighting with Suns fans trying to, this guy's what makes the offense flow. He is the, for lack of a better term, point guard. No, he's not bringing the ball up the floor. And now he's such an underrated passer. Yeah, did he drive me insane at times at the rim when he'd miss easy shots? Whatever. He's not DeAndre Ayton. With DeAndre Ayton, it drove me more insane because he was a max player. Jusuf Nurkic, you kind of get what you pay for.
And a great athlete. Whereas Nurkic, come on.
Exactly. It's another really good point. DeAndre Ayton had it, and he just didn't use it. Jusuf Nurkic, it's never really been a part of his game. I do worry that over another 82-game season, and it really is just strictly injuries for me. I'm not going to say Kevin Durant. The guy's game, just everything that I've seen, even age, it's just going to age gracefully. I'm not worried about Devin Booker. I'm not really worried about Bradley Beal suddenly becoming washed overnight. I'm just not. He's too athletic. Tyus Jones, no. The clearest guy, and this is how I took it. I took it from who could give the Suns the highest jump in a breakout and who could give the Suns the lowest in a breakdown. I do think it's Jusuf Nurkic. I really hope that that's wrong, because then we are stuck with the Bol Bol experience. Just one more jab in there. But Jusuf Nurkic, that is a guy with all those games missed. I'm really worried we're due for a market correction, or it just doesn't fit really well in the new Bud scheme where they try to make him Brook Lopez and it doesn't work out. Then they have to reconfigure him back into the role that he was in last year. I think it's very clearly Jusuf Nurkic, and that's the only guy I picked. What about you?
I think that's a great call, and I'm glad you went with it anyway, because I was mostly trying to hedge against the injuries because I don't want to just talk about Beal and Durant.
Yeah.
That's primarily because that's the lazy national analysis that we get with this team a lot, is that Beal can't stay on the court and KD is just going to get old. And it's like, maybe.
No, I don't think the second
But-
one's possible. Kevin Durant's not just going to get old.
I agree. I think we've already seen the dip in terms of the style that KD plays, and he's going to just be that from now on. If you look at some of like how much he attacks the rim, gets to the free throw line, the defensive impact, some of that stuff, of course it's dipped. He's in his mid-30s and he had an Achilles tear, but he's basically been the same type of player since coming back, whether he's wearing a Brooklyn jersey or a Phoenix jersey. So I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Nurk is a great call, though, because we expected this time last year that he would probably be in and out of the lineup, and he just wasn't. He just kind of was an Iron Man out of nowhere. And I don't know how long you can track that, because he's 30 now. He's going to be, trending toward the age KD is basically in the next few years, and you got to see how that goes. So I actually went with somebody, one of mine, I have two here, was somebody you did mention, which is Tyus Jones. And I also want to preface this whole thing by saying the Suns are deeper now, so they can weather the storm with some of these, right? So like Nurk would be a pretty bad one, but even then they have Mason Plumlee. If he missed 30 games, Plumlee would be there. And he's not an amazing player, but he's better than Eubanks. We'd feel a lot better than we did last year, right? So I think
that's not true. That's $10 million man, Drew Eubanks to you. $10 million man, Drew Eubanks.
But I think overall, right, they're deeper. So even if these guys, even if it does come to pass a little bit, there's at least some answers here that there wouldn't have been in the past. But Tyus Jones, let me just make the brief case. I went down a rabbit hole of looking at some of his defensive stats, and whether you're just looking at steal rate, just how many steals he's getting, or some of the deeper stuff of like there's a, Basketball Index does some grading on just, like tracking data stuff and things like that. And he has basically been, there was a point in his career, about half of it, where he was a very good defender. The early days in Minnesota, the beginning of his time with Memphis. And basically since the 2020-21 season, it's been a step down. Now, is that because he had to do a lot when Ja was out and then he went to a bad team and you can make a case? Sure. But we are talking about a guy who's 6'1" with a 6'5" wingspan. And I only bring the defense up for Tyus Jones. That's not really what we need him for in Phoenix, right? Like, I get that. It's not really why you brought him in. But last year, a big talking point with this team was point of attack defense. Who's going to guard those point guards? Who's going to guard the creators on the other team? That's why we got so hyped about Ryan Dunn in the last segment. Tyus Jones is probably going to be guarding those players. And I think we are, at least to start games, and I think we are just slightly overlooking that he needs to be up to that task in order to make as big of an impact as we hope he can and basically stay on the court. He doesn't have the infrastructure he had defensively in Memphis here. He has to be a good defender. He has to be able to stop some of these players. And he's small, and he hasn't done it in a while. And so I'm just bookmarking it.
I didn't know those statistics. Usually you pull statistics out at me and I'm normally like, oh yeah, I'm fairly familiar with that. I kind of sit back in my seat. I was unaware how poor Tyus Jones has been as a defender. No, but you make a good point. You make he could have just been doing a lot more with Ja being out. That makes sense.
Right? We were talking about PFF before we logged on. It's kind of like that. It's a little bit like that. It's one of those types of stat companies where it's
we're just grading and we're not going to tell you.
But I gotta look at it, and it has some concerning trends, and not just I'm pointing to last year, but past few years.
That's really interesting, because one of the things I worry about the Tyus Jones big three, Jusuf Nurkic offense or starting five is, offense is going to flow out better, but defensively, they're also really small. And they might be willing defenders, but if you get up against, like if they played the Magic, they might get pushed around. Sorry, I'll let you continue now.
No. That's it. I mean, I just think it's something to keep in mind that, yes, he can make threes. He can help with the pace. He's a turnover god, but he has to play the other end. Otherwise, they are going to be in right back into some of the same trouble that they were in last year. Last one quick, Royce O'Neal. He was a good shooter for this team. He was a good shooter last year, basically league average. We saw how streaky it can be in the postseason when he couldn't hit the side of a barn, And he's coming off, even though he was solid, it still was the worst 3-point season since his rookie year. He turns 32 during next year's playoffs. And he never was elite best defender on a top 3 defense type of player, even at his peak, although they probably were that because of Gobert. But what happens if you step back from a good defender to a decent defender and your 3-point shooting is not elite anymore, but just merely good? A little bit of a dip that would change the way we look at Royce O'Neal. Not predicting it, not saying it would be the end of the world, but another guy where, hey, wrong side of 30, let's just keep an eye on it.
I get what you're saying about Royce O'Neal, but just really quickly, I think he's like the only person on this team outside of Devin Booker who I'm like, he is what he is. And I like Royce O'Neal.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I understand you're probably not too worried about it either, but just someone to throw out there. And it is good reasoning, but Royce O'Neal to me just is what he is. Just a solid defender and a 3-and-D guy, but in like the lower tier of those guys.
Yeah, totally fair. And look, as I said, they can weather the storm with these guys a little bit more if anyone does drop off. But again, outside of injury, I don't think we're really looking at any players on this team who really have the potential to just have the floor fall out from underneath of them, right? Like, there's not an obvious candidate where, that guy, it could just be over before we know it. So, whereas like Eric Gordon last year, that kind of ended up being the case, right? He was healthy, quote unquote, but he really did not make anywhere near the impact because just the end came fast. I don't think that's going to happen with anybody on this year's team. So that's a very good thing. All right, that'll wrap us up. More questions answered throughout the week. Hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already. Our season preview series continues. We'll catch you tomorrow.